Hey everyone, Miss Nikki Neal here. I am the mom, manager, and business partner of Queen Ava. You probably know me from the comment section. I'm in there quite active, making sure everybody understands the truth of this recent and viral lawsuit that is happening between Ava and another creator. We have seen a lot of confusion, and we understand why, because the lawsuit, unfortunately, was heavily misrepresented when it was brought public. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully give everybody a very clear understanding of what the lawsuit is about. And I'm going to speak factually and clearly so that everybody understands what the truth is, because the truth is very important here. The first thing I have to say, of course, is that this is not legal advice. I am not an attorney. We have worked with two intellectual property attorneys, and this is where this information comes from. This is not legal advice for you. This is information with regard to Ava's federal complaint only. Now, getting into the lawsuit itself. First, this is not a lawsuit over a hairstyle. Ava is not suing over a hairstyle. I don't care which way you flip it, inside out, upside down. This is in no way, shape, or form a hairstyle lawsuit. The second thing to clarify is this has nothing to do with the natural hair that grows from anybody's head. The third thing is that this is in no way, shape, or form has any connection whatsoever to the Crown Act. There is absolutely no connection to any of these things and the federal complaint. If I were to summarize the entire lawsuit in one sentence, it would be that Ava's art was replicated into extensions and sold for profit. What makes Ava's designs art and not a hairstyle? Well, the first thing is Ava is not a creator that showcases hairstyles. Maybe she's had a hairstyle here and there where she's had bubble braids, for example, or her hair in twists, or her hair just kind of blown out. Those qualify in any standard as a hairstyle. What Ava is well known for are her hair sculptures that in no way, shape, or form people are wearing in everyday life. These hair sculptures, as seen here on her art gallery, are considered art. They take time, they take precision, they take a well thought out plan, and they are not worn from day to day. You do not see Ava walking around with a sushi roll. You don't see her walking around with star puffs. You don't see her walking around with butterfly puffs, nor do you see anybody really walking around like that on a regular basis like they would a full fro or braids or anything in between. Now, for those of you who have seen any of the exhibits within the lawsuit, you saw her art gallery. That was included in the lawsuit to show the overall picture of what Ava does. This is who she is. This is her online gallery, social media, what she's hired for. This is what she does. And it's not even a full list of all the hair sculptures that she's done. Within those are the star puffs, heart puffs, butterfly puffs, and flower puffs. Now, when you have a body of work, there is no person that gets to point out, this is art, that's not art, this is art, that's not art. Because if that's the case, somebody can say, well, the sushi roll isn't art, or the butterfly isn't art, or I don't think the watermelon is art. Like, nobody gets to decide which one is which. She has a body of work, and they are all considered art sculptures. Now let's get into copyright, because I think this is the most confusing part of it all. So I've already explained that what Ava does are hair sculptures. The one statement that has been made that is correct is that you cannot copyright a hairstyle. That's accurate. As I just explained, these are not hairstyles for Ava. These are art sculptures. No matter how simple or complex, they're art sculptures. They're in her body of work on her social media. They're in her art gallery. They are all named blank puff, depending on what the descriptor is, because they are part of a body of work. Now, there are three types of copyright examples, which I'll talk about here. The first one is the one that most people are familiar with. And that is that if you post a photo or a video, nobody can screenshot or download that photo or video and post it to their page, because that would be copyright infringement. Most people understand that. That is the most widely known understanding of copyright infringement. That did not happen here. The second, less known copyright infringement is that you cannot take an expression within a photo and recreate the same expression. That is less known. I will give you an example, a real world example. A lot of us are familiar with the very beautiful Grace Jones. I'll put the photo up here. Grace Jones created this photo. It is very well known. Can a beautiful Black woman get in a statuesque position and take a photo? Yes, she absolutely can. That would be the idea. The idea was, let me get in a statuesque form and take a photo. Anybody can do that. What anybody cannot do is completely replicate bar for bar the expression that Grace Jones did. So you cannot get in this form of standing on one leg with one other leg up, holding your foot, holding a microphone with the other hand. You cannot recreate that, even with your own body and your own skin and your own balance. You cannot recreate that and post it even to your social media, let alone photograph it and sell it. That would be considered copyright infringement. The third aspect of copyright infringement is when you photograph your art. This is one of the main points of the lawsuit, and people are not really familiar with this. It's important for other artists to know, regardless of what kind of artist you are. So if you take a photograph or a video of your original work of art, and we'll get into what is an original work of art in a bit, if you take a photo of that, nobody is allowed to take the art that's within your photo and replicate it in real life and sell it. The second and related part of this is the trademark aspect. For several years, Ava referred to her star puffs as star puffs. Ava has used the name star puff since 2023. When you fill out a trademark application, there is a date. It's called the first use date. And that allows you to record the date that you first used it in commerce. That date on Ava's application is March of 2023. So that means when the application process is complete, the application will be effective March of 2023 because that's when she first used it in commerce. It does not matter when the application was filled out. That's how trademark works. As we know, hair sculpting has been around for centuries. That is understood. Ava has paid homage to hair sculptors in the past. We all know, and we all can see with our two eyes, that the hair sculpting that Ava does is completely different than the hair sculpting of our ancestors. They are no way, shape, or form the same. And this is what artists truly do. They take inspiration from somewhere and then they make it their own. That is what should happen in the true artist space. So Ava took inspiration from the hair sculpting of our ancestors and she put a completely different spin on it, whereas you cannot even say her art looks like anybody else's art. That's what an artist is. So let's continue to talk about this from an infringement perspective. And I'm going to give you some other examples to take away from it being about Ava's art so that maybe you can understand it if you look at it in a different light. Let's take, for example, song, right? Let's take Beyonce's Single Ladies. Everybody knows that song. Oh, the Single Ladies. Everybody knows that. Everybody who's watching this probably completely understands that that line within her song is Beyonce's intellectual property. It is her song. If anybody saw it or heard it rather in another song, they would absolutely attribute that to, okay, Beyonce owns that song. That's from Single Ladies. Now let's talk about Beyonce's rights. If somebody took that phrase, the tone, the inflection, and put it in their song without clearing it with her first, she would have a copyright infringement case. And I think it's a fair assessment to say that nobody would argue that that's incorrect or that she would be wrong. Let's talk about what people would not do. People would not say, oh, Beyonce, but our ancestors have been singing for years. What makes you think that you own singing? She doesn't own singing. I think that's pretty clear. So nobody would really look at her trying to protect her work and say, but you don't own singing. How you don't own my voice. I'm allowed to sing. What are you telling me I can't sing now? Our ancestors have been singing for years. Absolutely nobody would say that. Everybody would understand that that's her art and that she's not trying to own singing. She's clearly just protecting her art. That's the same thing with Ava. The same exact thing. She's not trying to own hair sculpting. Everybody knows that you're free to sculpt your own hair. She is absolutely protecting her art and her art only. So if you can understand the first notion, then you can absolutely understand the second. Now let's talk about a common comment that we see, and that's our ancestors had their hair sculpted into stars. Let's talk about that. Ava was not the first person to sculpt their hair into stars. That is a comment that I have seen multiple times. And my response to a few of those comments were, please post it. Please post our ancestors in star puffs. Please post anybody, for that matter, in star puffs that predates 2021 when Ava started her journey. Now, a few people have attempted to do so. They've gone ahead and they've shown other creators with their hair in the shape of a full star, the full star puff, not the pigtail star puffs. And every single person they've shown has paid homage to Ava for their inspiration. And we thank them for that. No one to date has been able to show us the star puffs that predates Ava. Saying it does not make it true. The fact of the matter is that you will not find our ancestors with their hair in star puffs. At some point, you have to say to yourself, why am I being a hater? At some point, you have to say, I cannot find proof that our ancestors had their hair in star puffs. So by continuing to say it without proof, maybe I should dig deep in myself and try to figure out why isn't that I don't want to give Queen Ava her flowers? Because that's what it's starting to become. When you keep regurgitating the same thing and yet you're asked to bring proof, you have the internet in your hands and you can't seem to be able to produce your claim, instead of saying, you know what, maybe you're right, it doesn't exist, maybe I'm wrong, you double down on the claim. I think that's an internal discussion that you probably need to have. With regard to people saying I did this when I was younger, maybe you did. Did you post it? Is it anywhere online for Ava to have referenced? If no, then that still makes it Ava's original thought. Now, many times we've sat around and we've had ideas, business ideas, and then all of a sudden that business idea presents itself somewhere in the world. And you say, oh my God, I slept on that. I thought about doing that. Happens all the time. I'm not saying that two people can't both have the same original thought. That's very possible. But if you did not put it out there, if you did not post it, then that doesn't mean that the other person that created it didn't have an original thought. It can't read your mind. So it was also their original thought. And this is what has happened with the Star Puffs with Ava. If you did it when you were a kid, we absolutely believe you. But if you didn't post it and Ava didn't see it, then that makes it her original work of art. I hope I was able to clarify some things for you today. One thing I know, statistically speaking and personally speaking, is that Black women are the most educated group of women in this country. So I have no doubt that you are very capable of understanding copyright and trademark and the idea behind this entire lawsuit. I know you're capable, and that's why I gave you the truth. There is absolutely no need for us to dumb anything down or make it anything that it isn't, because you're perfectly capable of understanding what it is. I may take time to answer a few questions in the comments. Keep it respectful. I am a grown woman. I am not your little friend. I am somebody's mama. So if you have anything that you need clarified, I have no problem doing that as long as it's asked in a respectful way. If it's more of a long discussion, I have no problem making another video to explain a little bit further.